This is the introduction to this morning's gospel, the destruction of the temple foretold. The imminent end of time was a dominant theme for the baptizer, for Jesus, for Paul, and for the whole early church. They all anticipated that God would end it all within days. In this story, Jesus seems to predict the destruction of the temple, which the Romans actually did destroy, but not until 70 AD, some 40 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, and a full decade or so before Luke penned this narrative. Scholars think that these are not Jesus' words, but are the experience of the early church, which they thought indicated the end time was days away. However, if you want to understand this story, we need to be very clear that the experience of Jesus, Paul, and the first Christians was formed around this expectation that God was going to intervene and end it all within just a few days or weeks.
The Holy Gospel of our Savior Jesus Christ according to Luke. Glory to you, Lord Christ. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray. For many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and 'the time is near.' Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified. For these things must take place, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famine and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. Please be seated. And I do believe this is now working. To the friends at home, my apologies, we changed the batteries, and now the microphone's working better. It's amazing how that will help. Now, do you want me to move this? Can you see this, or if you don't, okay, I know you can see it over here. Can you see it over here? Can you see enough to see some little light things in the dark? Okay, we've got some yeses, we've got some nos. How about that? You see a little better now? All right. This is my friend. Oh wait, this is from my friend. I have a wonderful friend who is a watercolor artist. Her name is Sandra Stone Demmel, and I didn't tell her I was going to preach about her because she'd have a heart attack. I'll just let her do the video. And What I admire about Sandra, and I brought this because of you folks who are wonderful artists. I thought, it's time to preach a visual sermon, but I will describe this for those of you who cannot see this painting. It's long and longer than it is wide. You have a light space that almost looks like a horizon with trees above it, some sky, a little orange. Maybe that's what's being painted. It's a little vague. We're not quite sure. And underneath it is about, I would say, 7/8 of the painting or 5/6 of the painting is sort of a darker area that has some orange glow like from the above, and then there are these little light spots that almost look like shining leaves or something coming up through the water. If that's water, it might be land. What I love about Sandra's paintings, now most of them are much lighter, lots of flowers, and she will paint with these incredible focus on this light and archways and passageways. Her paintings, like if I am ever in hospice, I want one of her paintings right by my bed because there's light and there's archways and there's this in here too, we'll talk about it. And I want to look at that and say, ooh, there's a beginning here. There's a beginning. I'm not just ending life, I get to begin it too. Now, for those of you who can see this painting, you might say, well, this does not sound like her usual work. Well, I'm the kind that looks at a bunch of art, finds the one that doesn't fit and say, I want that one. Maybe it's my oppositional nature. But I have watched Sandra do this theme. I have another painting of hers with these, actually two now, with these lovely little gems kind of coming up from the deep. And I think they speak to Sandra's endings and beginnings because you see, she was a terrific ceramicist. I mean, just the glazes, unbelievable. And then she started having some health issues that she couldn't quite put a finger on. And once the doctor figured out that she was working with all of these metals and heavy metals and minerals and stuff, this was back in a while back, the doctor said, you know what? I think your particular art might be you have a problem with this. I think it's hurting your health. I need you to stop doing ceramics for a while. Let's see what happens. Now, if you're an artist, oh my gosh, right? What are you going to do? And she thought, well, I got to do art. I've got to do art. What's the least toxic art I can do? Watercolors. Watercolors. And so she began. And I show you this one because I believe it's about beginnings. When I first saw this, I thought it was a sunset, right? Sunset. I don't think so. And I'm thinking about beginnings in the midst of endings because of the readings this morning. We have this song from late Isaiah. Is it a song? Probably not traditionally a song, but it's this, I am about to do a new thing, and here's how it's going to go. These people have been through living, walking hell for 2 generations. They've had, they've had their cities ransacked. Most of them have been moved out. Some of them have remained. 2 generations go by, folks come back, and now you've got some tensions between those who stayed and those who went away. How are we going to build a new thing? Because we're never going to be able to go back to what we had before, so we got to look at this as a beginning. And Isaiah says, yes, that's what God is doing here. God is making a new thing. God is making a new thing. In the darkness of all this ending that you've had, Something's coming, something good, but you can't see it quite yet. But here is the promise. Now, if we're realistic, we as humans have a problem with beginnings. We really know that beginnings take a long time. How long was your adolescence? 57 years, I know. But how long was your adolescence? Looking back, it was how many years? How long was it when you were there? Right? It was forever. And it hurt, and it was painful and awkward, and you had to learn from mistakes, which was especially miserable if you were a younger child and you'd watched your older siblings make mistakes and say, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to read the book and follow the rules. And then you have to learn from mistakes. Beginnings take a long time, and we want them to be instantaneous, right? Folks, will often get married right after a divorce or get, something instantaneous. And sometimes we have to be in that sort of muddy middle place and learn who we are. And maybe go to the depths a little bit. We love to be up here. We're going to be down here sometimes. And if we allow ourselves to have a God-centered beginning, we might feel ourselves down here, and then we say, oh my goodness, look at these gems in the depth. Look at these slivers of life. And as we look at them, we see them kind of coming up out of the earth, and we feel ourselves doing that too. It might take a while to get there. But we also know that we can't always go back to how things were specifically. As Jesus is speaking this morning, or as the writer may be speaking on Jesus' behalf this morning, we have the apostles just going, oh, wow, look at this. Because you see, Herod the Great had redone the temple. And I mean, you have never seen a renovation like this. Gold-plated doors, silver-plated doors, just incredible tapestries, jewels. It was astonishing how much money had been spent on this renovation. And the poor were still really poor. But here we have this beautiful temple. And people are going, oh, look at this. And Jesus says, nope, this is going to go down. And they don't say, what do you mean? They say, when? Now, this gospel was probably written around 15 years after the temple had gone down, and after so many hard endings had taken place. And yet, there were all kinds of beginnings that were taking place as well. I'm not saying they were easy. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna. People died because of these endings. Wars were fought over these endings. But as we walk through our lives, our own lives individually, and our lives as community here, we get to look at beginnings. Because God is always doing something new. And this church, how long has this church been? How long has this community been around? 18 what? 196 years. Good glory. 196 years. Is it exactly the same as it was back then? No, Philander's back there. Okay? How many beginnings do you think this church has been through? A truckload. Where are we in world history right now? Please don't cuss. I mean, you can, but there are things that feel pretty grim. But we are a people of hope. We are a people, a community that says there is more than the ending of the old way. Because you are the community. You know why I call you saints? You're the church. You are the church. I could be the priest, someone else can be the priest. You are the church, the community of faith, the ones that encourage each other, saying, okay, we don't quite know what this beginning is going to look like, and it's going to take a little longer than we thought. It's not going to be instant, friends. But what you are doing right now is you're planting these. Or you are finding these. You've kind of gone deeper, and I often say, my strength is not growing a church for a lot of people. My strength is deepening a church so that you will grow, okay? You are planting these gems. You are finding these bits of light. And when we go downstairs today and we talk about what is it that makes you come alive, what is it that God has given you specifically as a joy and as a gift, it's going to be a little different from the people and all those other beginnings in this place. That is what we're being asked to give faith to look at, and to say, yes, Lord, thank you for giving us this. Thank you for letting us begin one more time. So as I look at this painting, I think it's a sunrise. Because you see, another thing that I didn't tell you at the beginning is that this series of paintings that Sandra's been doing since 1999 is called The Primordial Sea. And she just finished another one a couple weeks ago. How many years is that? Now, every day, we begin again. That's what gives us hope. That's what gives all of us life in Christ, life in community. I just invite you afterward, spend a little time with this, let it speak to you. But also spend a lot of time with God and let God speak to you. Especially if you feel you're down here. Let God show the light. I promise you will rise.